Hi, everybody. I'm Peter Skiera, aka Stations Guy, and my guests, plural, on today's show are five. I don't know if you want to call them rare CDs. Some of them I would consider rare, harder to find than your average bear kind of thing. A bit on the expensive side if you can find them in the used records CD market. Um, the first is going to be a bit of a surprise, I think, to most of you. You all know Sissy Spacek as the wonderful actress in Carrie and The River, Coal Miner's Daughter, and so on. But she originally started out wanting to be a singer, not an actress. And in fact, she released a single in 1968, kind of a novelty record, called John, You've Gone Too Far This Time. And it was under the name Rainbow, Rainbo. And it was lamenting the fact that John Lennon and Yoko Ono put out this album called Two Virgins, in which they are fully naked on the front cover. And so she put out this song, which many Beatle fans, which I am one, are familiar with, but it went nowhere, did nothing. But fast forward to 1980 when she starred in A Coal Miner's Daughter, and she sang the songs in that film. I think she's got 9 songs on the soundtrack, I believe. And that wasn't that common back then. It is more and more now today. You had Val Kilmer doing the songs in the film about the Doors. You had Timothy Chalamet in the film about Dylan singing Dylan songs. But back in those days and before then, it was more common for the actor or actress to mime to the actual song that the artist did. But she sang them. She did a great job. The album did fairly well. So in 1983, she put out her own album of material, not a soundtrack, but her own mostly country album, country/pop, on the Atlantic Records label called, well, I have it right here, Hanging Up My Heart. And it did, reasonably well. It charted number 17 on the Billboard Country Albums. It spawned 3 singles. But it wasn't until 2008 that it came out on CD by a label called Collector's Choice. And this photo, by the way, Annie Leibovitz did this cover photo of her. And it has not been reissued since then. It went out of print, and you can't get it except for this release. It's fairly expensive if you can find it, which they do come up on eBay and other used markets. It's got some notable talent on here, including Vince Gill on guitar and backup vocals, and Rosanne Cash on some backup vocals. She sounds very good. She does a great job. She wrote one of the tunes called, let's see, is it He Don't Know Me? I think it's He Don't Know Me. Yes, she wrote that. And she co-wrote at least one other song. But there are some great songs on here. Old Hometown is a great song. The title track is pretty good. Lonely But Only for You is a great song. And it's like it's some more traditional country and also some pop influences in there as well. This is the interior here, and there's the CD, and there's an inner picture, which is more of a close-up of the cover. She just has an amazing, I think, natural beauty about her. So yeah, it's worth checking out if you like country music, if you like Sissy Spacek. Good album. Not the easiest to find and not the easiest to pay for, but it's a very good album. That's number 5. I'm not doing this in any particular order. I'm not going from the least rare up to the most rare. I'm just randomly picking these titles out that I've grabbed from my meager collection. And so the next item on my list is by another name you will know, Mickey Dolenz from the Monkees. Of course, after the Monkees split up, the individual Monkees put out several of their own solo albums. And Mickey did an unusual one in 1991 for Rhino Records on the Kid Rhino label called Mickey Dolenz Puts You to Sleep, which is I like the album title. It's great. And what he does is he takes these classic rock songs and he sings them in a sort of lullaby way for children. It's very charming. It's a very interesting concept. It came out, like I said, in 1991 on Rhino on CD and tape, and I think LP. And then in 2023, it was reissued on a translucent vinyl and a blue vinyl. And then in 2014, it was reissued on CD. They did a double album CD. They did a combo of Mickey Dolenz Put You to Sleep and Broadway Mickey, where he sings Broadway tunes. So two separate CDs on one CD, and that was put out by Friday Music, was the company in conjunction with Rhino, and that was a limited edition, so that's out of print as well as the original. Now, this is the CD. This is not the original cover, and this is not the original back. This is the disc itself. The original release came in, it was almost like a long box that opened up sort of like a book. It had the lyrics printed in it. The CD was up at the top. But this CD, it's been out of print for a while, and it goes for some big money on the used record market. I couldn't afford it and couldn't see paying that, so I bought this one from a guy who just had the CD only, and he had these pieces cut from the original long box or booklet or whatever you want to call it that it came in, and he cut those out, and so I used them to put in here, so there was something. But I got it at, sort of a bargain basement price because it was just the CD. It didn't have the original artwork and packaging. So be prepared if you want to get one of these. You'll have to take out a second mortgage. It's interesting. The songs include Pillow Time, Dream a Little Dream, Beautiful Boy, which is the John Lennon song, Blackbird by the Beatles, Paul McCartney, Lullaby to Tim, Fool on the Hill, another Beatles song, Good Night, another Beatles song, St. Judy's Comet, the Moonbeam song, Remember, Sugar Mountain, and the Porpoise song, which was a Monkees song. And I personally prefer the original Monkees version to Mickey's remake. I don't think that the Porpoise song really lends itself to being a children's song, or at least not the way Mickey did it. Blackbird was very nice. Good Night, really good. That was originally sung by Ringo Starr, and Ringo has a kind of childish ambiance, if you want to say that, to his vocals. He hosted some of the PBS series of the Choo Choo Train thing there. What was that called? Thomas the Tank Engine. But he originally did Goodnight, sang Goodnight. Mickey does a very nice job on it. So yeah, it's worth getting if you like Mickey Dolenz and you think you'd like these kind of songs. Lots of adults have commented that they like this album, but just be prepared that you will spend a pretty penny for it. Next on my list, it's actually two CDs, so I'm kind of cheating a little bit here because I said I'd do five, but this is two. And these are in some ways kind of more historic. There was this area in St. Louis called Gaslight Square, which existed from the 50s into around the mid-60s. So around 10, 12, 15 years, it had actual gas lights along the sidewalks. It was, I think, around 2 blocks. And there were restaurants, some high-end. There were outside cafes. There were antique dealers and art shops. Loads of live music in the clubs and outside, mostly jazz, but other genres as well. It was a really hopping place. I mean, thousands of people would come out at night and walk these streets and go to the different clubs and enjoy the live music. It just gradually sort of went downhill. They had crime, businesses started closing, and it went away, like I say, around the mid-60s or so. But a company called Norman Records, which was a local St. Louis record company, put out a vinyl album called A Musical Tour of Gaslight Square, and it featured many of the artists that played in many of these clubs. This is is a copy of the cover from the record album, from the vinyl album, and then I did the same on the back, because this was another case where this CD is really, really, really difficult to find, like really difficult, because they put it on vinyl and then they eventually released it on this CD, and then the company went out of business shortly thereafter. So they didn't make a lot of these CDs. This is what the disc looks like. And that's the original record label on the vinyl. But the guy that I bought this from on eBay only had the CD. He didn't have the jewel case or the artwork or anything. So I just copied the artwork from the vinyl album and put it in here just so there was something. But it's kind of a historical thing, because you'll never hear, Gaslight Square will probably never come back again, ever, or certainly not like the way it was. And so to have this music preserved is just a great thing. I don't know what date this came out. I don't think it was in 2005, but I believe this one was in 2005. Is that right? Yes. So Gaslight Records, also a local record company in St. Louis, put out a follow-up, which is called In the Afterglow, the Historic Music of Gaslight Square, which simulated the original artwork from the first album. And this one, I was able to get the artwork along with the CD, and this was quite expensive. It's also not the easiest thing to source. And this is, again, has a whole bunch of different artists from that period, and these are all live recordings, recorded live in the clubs at Gaslight Square. There are 20, is it 19 or 20? 20 tracks here. And it's interesting, this is an insert that promotes other albums on the Gaslight label, and somebody wrote on here, "What a time it was." So apparently whoever owned this at some point actually, I guess, had been to Gaslight Square. I think that's kind of cool that somebody wrote that on there. Comes with a nice booklet with some good liner notes. This is the picture on the inside, which once again promotes their catalog. Some of the tracks are mono, some of them are stereo, and they're basically from this guy who produced this, went around to folks who had tapes, had these recordings in their basement, garages, attics, whatever, and he had about 150 tracks to choose from. There was talk about maybe doing a version 2, but that never happened. I'm not sure it ever will. And he said most of the recordings were in very, very good condition. So it's good sound quality, great representation of what that period was like then. So really cool stuff here if you're into jazz and that kind of music, and or are familiar with this Gaslight Square. And now we move on to CD number 2. You're all familiar with Steven Spielberg, the director. When he was just starting out, he had done 1 or 2 director jobs for television movies. One of those movies that he did was called Duel, D-U-E-L, starring Dennis Weaver. Came out in 1971. Good film. I thought it was a very good film, actually. And it was basically about a sort of maniac truck driver who was intent on killing Dennis Weaver's character, which I think his name was David Mann, who drove a 1970 bright red Plymouth Valiant. The truck driver drove a 1957 Peterbilt 281, looking very menacing and sounding like this animal. It was, in some ways, I guess you could almost liken it to Jaws, except instead of someone being pursued by a killer shark, he was being pursued by a killer truck driver. The first time I saw this film was actually in college. I was taking a college film course, and it's great to take a course where you go in and you watch movies. How great is that? And this was one of the films they showed during the course. I'd never seen it before, never heard of it, and I thought it was great. They did release this as a full-length feature film afterwards, but they didn't just take the television version and put it out as a movie, because it was too short. It was shot to fit the schedule of a television slot. So they brought Spielberg back in to shoot some additional footage to make the film longer, and in 1972 they did an actual theatrical release. The soundtrack I don't think was ever released on vinyl, but it was released on CD. And this came out, I think, it was 2015, and by the label Entrada. Very, very limited edition. There are 19 tracks on here. Here's the inside. And here's the artwork behind the CD. And the music was composed by a man named Billy Goldenberg, who died about 4 years ago. He worked with people like Elvis and Barbra Streisand, and he did this soundtrack using primarily strings, harp, a moog, drums, keyboards, that kind of thing. So kind of minimalist, but spooky enough to add a lot of drama to the movie. The movie was actually based on a short story that was published in Playboy, of all places. But if you haven't seen the film, check it out. I think you'd enjoy it. I just would like to read a section from the extensive liner notes that are in this booklet. Entrada did a really fantastic job on this. But just to show you tell you a bit about this project. It says here, in a stroke of great fortune, Universal, which was the film company, retained every multiple 3-channel recording session layer on separate rolls of 1/2-inch tape, as well as the additional mono string session takes on their own full-track rolls. This allowed us to create true stereo takes of nearly every cue, with only the diner sequences necessarily having mono sound, with slight stereo reverb added. Listeners will thus be hearing some of the most complex television scoring of all time, with stunning stereo detail that reveals numerous innovative techniques vividly on display for the first time. The other thing that's interesting about this release is when Dennis Weaver's in his spiffy Valiant, occasionally he's got the radio on listening to some instrumental country music. That's on here as well, but rather than the snippets, which is what you hear in the film, you hear the full songs that Goldenberg composed. So pretty cool, hard to find, not cheap, but if you like the film, it's an interesting thing to add to your collection. And if you haven't seen the film, please do check it out, because I think it's a great film. So let's now move on to title number 1, which yet again is another artist you've heard of before, Prince. And Prince did a all-instrumental album, his first instrumental album. It was called 8, the number 8. He did a follow-up called 16, the number 16, again, all instrumental. He put it under the Madhouse name. It wasn't under the Prince name. He made this fictitious person or a group called Madhouse. Eventually it was revealed that it was Prince. I mean, kind of the giveaway was it was on the Paisley Park record label / Warner Brothers, so that, that kind of gave it away. But Prince wrote or co-wrote the songs, and he played all of the instruments on 8 except for sax and flute, which was played by a man named Eric Leeds, who had been in the Prince's Purple Rain tour. But this album really demonstrates Prince's talent, because he was more than just a guitarist. He was a multi-instrumentalist, and he had appreciation for jazz. His father was a jazz pianist. This album was recorded in late 1986, was done in 4 days, so pretty quick project. It's very jazzy, R&B, soulish kind of stuff. So if you like contemporary jazz and you like Prince, I think you really like this album. I actually have both 8 and 16 on vinyl, because it came out on vinyl as well as CD and cassette. And a woman named Manika Leitner is the one who's on the cover. They did this is the inner sleeve to 16. They did a a sort of 50s pinup kind of style, as you could see in those pictures. And there was supposed to be a follow-up to these, a third album called 24, the number 24, with, again, 8 more tracks. That never materialized. Those tapes are sitting in Prince's vault. I hope someday the family decides to release them. But both of those albums made it onto compact disc. I have 8. I did not get 16, but I do have 8. You can occasionally find these. They are not inexpensive. This is the inside. You can see the Paisley Park label there. Great cover. I love retro, as you know, which is why I do these things, and so I love the kind of 50s pinup deal there. Unfortunately, it's only about 38 minutes, so pretty skimpy on the runtime there. But it's 8 instrumental tracks, so that's that. Just as, if you'll excuse one of my trademark digressions, I actually went to Paisley Park, to Prince's home and recording studio in Minnesota. I'm not a super fan, but I do like Prince. I like his music. I appreciate his talent. And so I went there to tour his home, and I felt very privileged to be able to be in his home. The company that runs the tour is the same company that runs the tours for Graceland, so they've got experience with celebrity homes and that kind of thing. Got to see his office, got to see his recording studio, got to play ping pong on his ping pong table, got to see the area where he would sit and watch basketball games. We didn't get to go upstairs, which I assume is where his bedroom was, and I think they have offices up there. We didn't get to see that. Didn't get to see the vault area, unfortunately. From what I could tell, the elevator where he died is gone, which is unfortunate, not because, it's like this interesting, morbid sideshow thing that would be good for part of the tour, but to show it to really... it's an emotional tour, especially if you love Prince. One of the guys on the tour with me actually just broke down, started crying, he was bawling. They had to get him a box of tissue. So it is emotional. And so I really think that should have been included as part of the tour, to show the elevator, rope it off or put plexiglass in front of it or something. You don't want people going in there. And you're not allowed to take pictures for like 95% of the tour, so it's not like people would be taking pictures of it. But I think it would have been an important part of the tour. It would have hit home the dangers of drugs and fentanyl and that kind of thing. So that wasn't there. But it was a great tour. If you're ever in Minneapolis or if you're a Prince fan, it's a must. Definitely get it on your list. And so what they do, as I say, is they lock up your phone, and then they give you your phone back for the very last part of the tour, where you go into this super huge room, which was used for some concerts and for filming and things. And they give you your phone back. You can take pictures of, there are some cars that were his that are there, some uniforms, other things. And then they bring you out into the nightclub, which they still use. They still have events there. And then they dump you off into the gift shop and charge you crazy prices for Prince-related things. But it's a great tour. It's a great facility, very impressive. Another kind of emotional thing is you'll see spots on the floor of candle wax. Prince liked candles. And when the company came in to take over and do these tours, they decided to leave the wax on the floor. They didn't clean it up. They left it just as the way Prince had left it. So that's interesting. But anyway, if you like Prince, if you like smooth jazz, and you get some money, good disc to add to your collection. So that's it. That's my 5 rare CDs. I'll just note here that I get comments when I do these. These kind of videos where I do albums and CDs get the most dislikes out of all my videos, and it's not because people don't like the content or the CDs or the music. It's because they're frustrated that I'm not playing any snippets of the music, which I understand that I talk about these things, then I don't play them. And I do that because of copyright laws. You're supposed to pay a royalty or a licensing fee, whatever, if you play snippets of songs. And I know people have said, well, what are the chances you're going to get caught? for this, probably very low. And they may be right. But, if you can do something that's not really right and you can get away with it, should you do it? I mean, if you could murder somebody and get away with it, would you do it? Doesn't mean it's right just because you can do it. If I were an artist, I wouldn't want my music stolen or my artwork stolen or whatever it is that I'm making. So rather than dislike my videos or send me semi-nasty messages through the comments, I think really what you should do is contact your congressman and tell them, hey, the copyright law needs to be changed so that people like me who do these kind of videos can play a 10, 15, 20-second snippet of a song without being responsible to have to pay a royalty, because I'm not trying to make money off of it. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just demonstrating what I'm talking about. If anything, it's helping to sell more albums and CDs. So that's really where you need to direct your frustration and or your anger, because this law is ridiculous that you have to pay in this kind of incident, which is just not appropriate, I think. And, a lot of these artists are doing quite well, so it's not like they're going to be giving up a lot of money for these particular cases. So anyway, I understand your frustration. I get it, believe me. And if I could play this and not feel like I'm ripping somebody off, then when it didn't violate a law, then I would. It's just that I just don't really feel comfortable about it. And even if I personally don't get, whatever they would do to me, YouTube could still take down the video, and, I don't want that. So anyway, that's that. If you'd like to support what I do, you can jump on Patreon, type in recommended stations in the search bar. You can also go on PayPal, on Buy Me a Coffee. No obligation, but it does help me survive and do these videos and so on. So thank you very much for watching. Like it, comment positively, I hope. Give me a thumbs up, not a thumbs down. Subscribe, share the video. That helps me with my stats, so I can hopefully take advantage of more things that YouTube will offer me to do the videos. And thanks again for watching. And remember, be kind to each other. We'll see you next time.
Stations Guy.